Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for joining me once again. So I'm back today with another existing collection video talking about my existing CD collection. So everyone knows how that works by now. Just moving down my alphabet from A to Z. And if you watched the last chapter of this particular topic, I'm still going through G. So the last album I talked about was Gorguts Considered Dead. So still continuing with G today, the letter G. And as the title suggests, what this video will include is albums by bands containing the word or the name Grave. Okay, so like all of my Grave as a suffix related releases, so bands with the name Grave in them. And yeah, there's 5 albums to talk about, 3 different bands. Yep, so let's get started. All right, so the first album I'm going to talk about today, since it's a Grave related topic, what better place to start than the band Grave? This is Grave with You'll Never See. So of course Grave probably need no introduction to most of you. Classic Swedish death metal band. They are considered part of the big 4 of Swedish death metal alongside Entombed, Dismember and Unleashed. So this was actually, of those 4, like I've been a fan of Entombed and Dismember since the 90s, but Unleashed I discovered way later, like in the 2010s, and Grave the most recently, just a few years ago. But yeah, shame on me for leaving it so long, but they are a fantastic band. I have spoken about this album in a previous collection update, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. Also, most of you probably know this. This is the debut album from this legendary Swedish band. What's interesting about the big 4 of Swedish death metal is they all don't sound the same, definitely not. I think Grave sounds unique in comparison to the others because Grave is a very groove-driven band. It's kind of like this chugging riff locomotive sound, which is very groovy, very dark, very heavy. You know, so very distinct from the other bands, the aforementioned bands I referred to. So yeah, I really like it. It's just got this crunch and this groove and a really fat, heavy sound, like fat, heavy, chunky riffs, and they're solid. So they're those kind of riffs. It's not like blast beat oriented with a lot of technical complex time changes. It's just groove driven, so you're tapping along, you're nodding your head, banging your head. It's excellent. And at the same time though, it does have that distinct Scandinavian or Nordic sound. You know, just that's the thing with Swedish death metal bands. I think they have a particular sound in comparison to the American bands. Like the American bands are more kind of brutal and chaotic, you could say. But I think the Swedish bands, there's some kind of dark atmosphere surrounding them, and I think that's inherent in, I don't know, Nordic nature or Nordic culture. But anyway, I won't ramble on too much. This is a brilliant album. I will say with Grave, for me, like they're not really a standout track band in the sense that I'm not waiting for one particular song. Generally speaking, all of the songs generally have the same kind of sound. They don't sound exactly the same, but it's that overall listen kind of band. Like you listen to the whole album the entire way through and really enjoy the whole thing. Having said that, I do have a couple of standout tracks. There always are. So on the album You'll Never See, my favorites are track 3, which is Morbid Way to Die. Also Obsessed, track 4, that's brilliant. It's got some keyboards, and that's the thing with these Scandinavian death metal bands. It's that they often veer into black metal territory, which kind of makes sense, I suppose. Another great track on this album is track 8, Christ Insanity, so I play on words from Christianity, of course. And that is it for You'll Never See. Also, the title track is great. Like every track on this album is very good, so you can't really go wrong. This version I have also includes the EP, which is called And Here I Die. And so there's, how many tracks on that? 6 tracks, and they're all very good. With the And Here I Die EP, it sounds much meatier and heavier in the production. Like You'll Never See has a very heavy production anyway, but And Here I Die, it's really sort of like dark, cavernous, like really heavy, so that's excellent. My favorite songs on the EP are the title track And Here I Die, also track 10, I Need You, and track 12, which is entitled Tremendous Pain. That actually starts, the sound of that the start of that song, Tremendous Pain, sounds a bit like the start of the Marduk track, Departure from the Mortals, which is of course from Marduk's Dark Endless album when they were in more death metal territory, so it kind of makes sense. But then after that sort of departure from the Mortals-esque intro, it launches into some chugging riffs and fast frantic death metal, and there's also some slow doomy parts. So yeah, that's a good thing about Grave. There is a variety in tempo, except usually, generally speaking, it's that mid-paced chugging locomotive sound, which is really groovy, so I really like it. So fantastic band, Essential. So if you haven't heard this, definitely go and listen to it if you're a fan of death metal. This is the pointless slipcase cover, but I do see why they made this because the artwork's much better than here. This is the original, so the artwork on this particular version, it's just a bit obscure in a bad sense, in the sense that you can't see it very well. Nice colors though. And here's the booklet, which folds out like a poster, so you've got all of the lyrics there. And I never noticed this, cool photo of the band, which says, dying victims moaning, choking by their blood, silent is the mourning from those which God forgot. So some delightful lyrics there, very fitting for this album. And just show you the disc as well with the Grave logo, which I think is cool. Yes, so I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but if you haven't heard it, it is a very good album, excellent groove-driven Swedish death metal. That's Grave with You'll Never See. All right, now the next album I'm going to talk about is another Grave album, one I've never talked about on this channel. This is Grave with Extremely Rotten Live. So yes, the same Swedish death metal band, and as you can guess from the title, it's a live album. So obviously Grave have a song called Extremely Rotten Flesh, so it's a variation on that, Extremely Rotten Live. This is a recording of a performance which I believe was in California in the late 90s. And this was actually the first Grave album I ever bought in my life. Like, it was about 6 or 7 years ago at a local market in Thailand. I just saw this at a cheap price and I thought, Grave, yep, I've always heard of them, but never actually listened to their music, so I decided to buy this one. Even though it's a live album, like, in my opinion, live albums are generally not a great start or introduction to a band because, the sound quality is usually not very good, so you can't hear the songs as well. So it's not a good starting point, but the price was right, so I bought it. Also, I was going to say, generally I think live albums are pretty pointless, or, no, well, not pointless, but not really essential. With some exceptions, like Kiss Alive 3, Marduk Live in Germania. But this one, having said that though, even though I'm saying live albums are generally pointless, when I listened to this, I liked it enough for me to think, oh, I should check out this band more, start checking out their studio albums. So it was a good introduction to me in that sense. Like, you can definitely hear the grooves and, their song signature and song structures, in these live performances from a mix of albums. So this came out in '97, so most of the songs are from their early albums. All of the material was new to me when I first bought it all those years ago. But yeah, it is very good. Like I said, it enabled me to like the band enough to check out more. Having said that, the sound quality on this recording is not great. It's not terrible, but obviously studio albums are a lot better. And they do have, just some interludes of Ola, that's the band leader, the main guy behind the band, talking to the crowd. And it's quite funny, I can't remember which song it is, but at the beginning he says, we promise to play this one if you go extra fucking nuts. And it always cracked me up because I thought that's a really interesting choice of words. But yeah, cool album. Just show you the inner sleeve. So pictures of the band members as a three-piece. So it was Ola on guitars and vocals, Jensa on drums, and Jonas on bass. And yep, there's the disc. So how many songs have we got on here? 15, which is actually really good. So a lot of classic ones. Extremely Rotten Flesh, Turning Black, Restrained, Winter Night, Haunted, blah, blah, blah. Reborn, Miscarriage, Into the Grave. So like a lot of famous songs by this band. Talking about my favorite tracks on the album, I'd probably say track 2, Turning Black, because that's got a groovy main riff, that classic Grave sound, but also a lot of fast parts too. And that's the thing with this band. Even though it's mainly groove driven, they do sometimes launch into sort of some fast, frantic kind of medium paced blast beats, which is cool. Also track 4, Winter Night, is a great track. And also You'll Never See, which is from this album. Yeah, great live rendition here with a nice galloping riff, of course. And the strangely titled Love Song, not what you would expect for a death metal band, but it's probably an ironic title, I can imagine, but that's got a really groovy swing time riff. But yeah, they're my favorite 4 tracks on the album, but the whole album is good and it's a great overall listen. Like I said, it was my introduction to the band, but the sound was good enough to make me pursue more of their material. So yeah, good live album by Grave. This is Extremely Rotten Live. Okay, so up next is an album I've never spoken about before on this channel, yet still by the same band. So this is Grave with Fiendish Regression. So all of these I've spoken about in chronological order. So this is coming after these, and I've got a few missing ones as well. But what I really love about this album is, as I've said with Grave, they're a very groovy sounding band. This album has even more focus on groove than you'll never see. So that as I said, that groovy chugging locomotive kind of sound, and most of the songs on here are on the slow end of mid-paced, but with occasional blast beats and fast sections. You know, so like the snare blasting, drumming and so on, but that groove is ever present and overarching the sound on this album. And really just these tracks, they just plod along in a good way, I mean that, and you're just tapping along, nodding your head. And I'll just go ahead and say this, out of the Grave albums I've heard, out of the ones I've spoken about today, this is easily my favorite. So I know You'll Never See, that's considered the essential classic as the debut, but of all the Grave albums I own, this one is actually my favorite because that groove, they've just perfected it even more than on previous albums. So I really like it. All great songs on this. Like, again, this is an overall listen album. There are 9 tracks plus 2 bonus tracks, which are also very good. So no complaints there. My favorites are actually, it's sort of like the odd numbered tracks just by coincidence. So track 3, Awakening, track 5, which is entitled Trial by Fire, track 7 entitled Inner Voice, which has got some really dark, sinister, disturbing lyrics, you know, about voices in someone's head commanding them what to do. You know, like it's been done in death metal before, but it just fits the dark groove of this album so well. Also track 11 entitled Autopsied, so they're my favorites. There's also a track on track 10, Burial at Sea, that has some excellent pirate-themed murderous lyrics, so that's kind of cool as well. So I like the lyrical content of this band, you know, sort of focusing on the depressing side of things, but it fits the music so well. So yeah, like I said, I know sometimes people pay attention to what are the classic, what are the essential albums by a band. For me, if I happen to like them, that's great, but as I said, this is perhaps not considered as one of their classics, but it's my favorite. So fantastic album. If you like Grave and you haven't heard it, definitely go and listen to it. It's my favorite thus far of the ones I've heard. So just show you the disc here. So cool colors and logo as usual. And this cover art is interesting. I think it's a picture of Jesus Christ with some other chaos going on in the background. And because a lot of their lyrics are anti-religion as well. Nice readable lyric sheet on this one, and the photo of the band. So 4 members on this one: Ola, Jonas, Fredrik and Pella. So very Swedish names there. So this is when they're a 4-piece, unlike a 3-piece before. Yeah. But yeah, I really like this one, and every time I listen to it, I enjoy it. I'm starting to listen to it more and more actually, so definitely check it out. That's Grave with Fiendish Regression from 2004. Okay, so that completes my collection of Grave on CD. So, but continuing with Grave related band names, we'll go to the next one. So this is Grave Digger with The Last Supper. So most of you are probably familiar with this band too. Grave Digger are of course a German heavy metal band formed in 1980, and their first album was released in 1984. So they are considered definitely as, you know, among the originators of German heavy metal and general heavy metal in general. Like, if you think about it, like 1980, that's when the new wave of British heavy metal was starting out. So that new sound for heavy metal, which distinguished it from the 70s sound. But anyway, of course, Grave Digger are German, and there was a fledgling scene in Germany with a lot of bands, you know, like, Sodom, Creator, Destruction, Halloween. I know Sodom, Creator and Destruction weren't heavy metal, but, you know, there were a lot of great bands in the 80s, like Halloween was another one. But yeah, Gravedigger is part of that, but yes, definitely traditional heavy metal. I have spoken about this in a collection update about a year ago, I think, like that. But I remember at that time I said I felt that this album was, for traditional heavy metal, I felt it was a bit generic and not that original. But I've actually changed my opinion on this album. I've really got into it a lot more. Like, I did like it before, but now just even more. So how would I describe this? This is traditional heavy metal, which is very well played and executed. The production on this is extremely meaty and heavy, and you can hear all the instruments clearly, including the bass, which is fantastic. So it's got this really chunky, fat sound, which is excellent. And it also features solid riffing throughout, excellent guitar solos, which deliver a lot of melody and harmony. So all of those classic heavy metal elements, all the boxes are ticked on this album, which is great. Now, in addition to that though, they go beyond the traditional heavy metal sound. This album also features some epic moments with choral, big epic backing vocals and other instruments such as pianos and synthesizers, so it's made to be a sort of grandiose production, you could say. It also features some somber and subdued moments with clean guitars and some kinds of, in a sense, power ballads, but don't think of a power ballad in the sense of a cheesy hair metal power ballad, you know, just like a melancholic and reflective kind of atmosphere on some songs, which is excellent. Now, as for the lead vocals with Gravedigger, on this album anyway, I haven't heard any other albums, so I can't comment, but they're quite sort of low-end and gruff. So like, not that melodic, but they do get melodic in some parts, and as the album goes on. So it starts off quite gruff, but it gets more melodic. And yeah, the only thing is, like, I would say those vocals, they're not really that distinct, or I wouldn't say they're the best for me, but they have grown on me and they do fit the music, which is good. So like I said, yeah, I previously said that this was a bit generic, but remember, of course, maybe in a sense, because Gravedigger, of course, one of the forebearers of heavy metal, so they were partly responsible for forging the whole genre's sound in the beginning. And this album would sound absolutely brilliant, cranked up, you know, in a high volume on a big speaker system, just so heavy, it would be awesome. Now, this album, you can see from the cover, it's called The Last Supper, so there's a picture of Christ there. It seems to have a religious theme, definitely, surrounding, but yeah, it's focusing more on, it's not, the band has said that it's not a concept album, but it's really focusing on the last days of Christ's life, so that is the theme surrounding the album, you can say. And I also don't, I definitely don't think it's a pro-Christian album, like it's not selling the religion or anything. I think it's just telling the story through the songs from the perspective of Christ, so the last days of Christ before his execution. Yeah, so the whole album is brilliant. Like I said before, I didn't get into this much, but it took me a while, but it has grown on me a lot. Anyway, my favorite tracks are tracks 4, 5, and 6. So track 4 is entitled Grave in the No Man's Land. Yes, suitable for the topic of this video, even got the name Grave in it. Yeah, so Grave in the No Man's Land, that's excellent. That's got some excellent heavy chugging, catchy riffs, especially the main riffs, and good memorable vocal melodies, and a very fun pre-chorus and chorus. And in some ways it's got kind of a Halloween feel to me, so that's a great track, Grave in the No Man's Land. Then track 5, Hell to Pay, that's just good, aggressive, fast, heavy metal. It's got prominent bass lines in it and a great guitar solo trade-off, so just brilliant heavy metal with all those boxes ticked. Then track 6, Soul Savior. Actually, I've mentioned this before, I think the opening riff of that song sounds like the main riff in Skin of My Teeth by Megadeth, but then it launches into some more generally catchy heavy metal, so it's not going in that thrash direction. And a very memorable chorus once again. But there are so many other brilliant moments on this album. For example, Crucified is a power ballad with some atmosphere. Divided Cross, track 8, has some excellent infectious guitar melodies and is very catchy. Track 9, The Night Before, has a very Primal Fear vibe. And track 10, Black Widows, that's got some epic synths. So it really is quite diverse, and there are a lot of interesting moments on this album. And overall, it's just delivering quality traditional heavy metal, so that's fantastic. Yeah, as I mentioned, this has grown on me a lot. In the beginning, it didn't stand out to me all that much when I bought it a year ago, but I gave it some time, and now I really enjoy it. This album is a definite grower, and you'll be banging your head, or at the very least nodding or tapping along to this. So I would recommend this particular album for fans of traditional heavy metal, well-produced modern heavy metal, power metal, and German heavy metal. So if you think of the sound of modern Judas Priest and also the other German band Primal Fear, you can expect that kind of sound on this album. Yeah, so just show you the cover art. That's a cool picture there. And yeah, so you see the booklet, all of the lyrics and pictures surrounding the theme of the last days of Christ. And picture disc there, and I think it did have, there you go, picture of the band with the Grim Reaper. So cool. Yeah, so yeah, like I said, Gravedigger are a very old band which began over 40 years ago. This is the only album I own by them, but I am curious to check out more, but you know how it is, so many bands, so little time. But if you're a fan of Gravedigger, what albums do you recommend? I would like to hear more. But if you haven't heard this and you like traditional heavy metal, definitely check it out because it's great. So that's Gravedigger with The Last Supper. All right, and coming up to the last album for today, under the grave-related band names, only one to go, and this is Graveland with The Fire of Awakening. So once again, I did speak about this one in a collection update last year, so I'm not going to say too much, but yes, Graveland is a Polish black metal band, or primarily black metal project created by one man by the name of Rob Darkin. So I think on the studio albums he plays most or all of the instruments. I know in the past he had drummers, and I think now there are members for live performances. I saw this band at Steelfest last year. Hands down, it was the best band of the festival. Absolutely magical, brilliant. Yeah, so I loved it. So if you're not familiar, Graveland, yeah, Polish black metal band which began in the mid to late 90s, I think, and they started off, you know, with a kind of extreme ideology which they don't have anymore. They now consider themselves pagan black metal. But the early stuff was very raw. There was a bit of atmosphere, but then after the first few albums, starting with Creed of Iron, he went in a more epic, atmospheric direction, using a lot of keyboards, synthesizers, string instruments, and that kind of thing. And I really think it's fantastic. Like, Creed of Iron is probably my favorite Graveland album of all time. I haven't spoken about it before on this channel, but I own more Graveland albums on vinyl, so I will get to those in black metal vinyl. But yeah, in my opinion, the four essential albums for Graveland, which all came out in a row, are Immortal Pride, Creed of Iron, Memory and Destiny, and this one, Fire of Awakening. But there are also some other brilliant ones like Fire Chariot of Destruction. Yeah, so many. And also, I do dig the earlier ones too, like Carpathian Wolves and Thousand Swords. You know, albums like that are really good, but I just think this epic sound that he went for is even better. It's very majestic. So, hard to describe the sound of Graveland, but I think they are unique. It's very sort of symphonic, atmospheric black metal. So if you like bands such as Bathory and Emperor, yeah, you will really like this, I'm sure, except they still have a unique sound. The keyboards they use quite constantly in a lot of albums, but not as much as, say, Emperor. And also the difference between this and Emperor is this has more of an Eastern European, Slavonic sound. And I've also mentioned that with the keyboards and the string instruments, it reminds me very much of that epic, monumental film soundtrack to Conan the Barbarian, you know, which was composed and conducted by Basil Pomodorius. Excellent album. But yeah, Graveland is playing black metal in that kind of classical symphonic style with an Eastern European flavor, and it also reminds me of Conan the Barbarian, that soundtrack. So if any or all of those things appeal to you and you haven't heard Graveland, definitely check this out. What I like on this album is it's generally, with the epic era of Graveland, it's generally sort of a mid-paced affair with the music, but sometimes it speeds up. On this album, it is mid-paced, but it's generally a bit faster than some of the other epic albums that he's done. But yeah, never really blast beats or anything. Like, it's kind of a gallop, or sometimes like mimicking the rhythms of pre-battle war drums, that kind of thing. So it's very centered around, you know, the concept of medieval warfare, things like that, and the revival of paganism, that kind of thing, yeah, as pagan black metal. But yeah, just really, it's almost like a majestic, epic soundscape. When you listen to this band, sit down and close your eyes and listen to it, you're just taken on a journey to another world, to the medieval world or to a fantasy world. I don't know, but yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. I think when music paints pictures in your mind, that shows how powerful it can be, and this is no exception, definitely. So 5 tracks on this, all very long. You know, that's his style with these epic albums. They are all great, but just listening to this once again today, probably my favorite track at the moment is track 4, Die for Freedom, because it's very majestic and epic with the keyboards, and I think Emperor fans would like that song as well. So yeah, no complaints here, just classic Graveland, and as I said, it belongs to the 4 essential Graveland albums for me, which all came out in a row. So just show you this cover art that's really cool, with the superimposed god in the background in the shape of clouds, the warriors on the swords, and cool booklet, but unfortunately the lyrics are largely unreadable because it's white on white, so you know, on the background it's hard to read. Cool pictures of nature. And yes, so there's a picture of Rob Darkin in full armor. Yeah, so it very much has this kind of like pagan, pre-Christian feel, but absolutely brilliant, majestic black metal. Like I said, I saw them at Steelfest, hands down the best band, because it was so powerful and atmospheric. It was just a treat to see that kind of music live. So if you've never heard Graveland before and you would like to check them out, for me, I prefer the more epic stuff, so I would recommend you start with one of these albums: Immortal Pride, Creed of Iron, Memory and Destiny, or this one, Fire of Awakening. But yeah, this belongs to that classic. How do you say trilogy for 3? What's the word for 4? Anyway, yeah, belonging to that classic group of 4. So this is Graveland with Fire of Awakening. All right. So that's it, guys. That concludes my video for today. My existing CD collection going through grave-related band names. So I hope you enjoyed it. Now, I haven't done a collection update in a while because I haven't really bought a lot for a long time. However, there's a guy in Thailand who I buy extreme metal off, and I had a lot of stuff on back order with him, and now it's all suddenly coming in. And recently I went shopping in Bangkok as well, so I have some collection updates coming up, so I will include those soon so we can give the channel some variety. So I've gone from existing collection today, and I will probably talk about new stuff soon. Also, I may join some threads if new ones come up, but I have done quite a few lately. So anyway, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you very much for watching if you made it this far, and as always, thanks very much for your continued support of the channel. I really appreciate it. So I will see you in the next video, which will be quite soon, and in the meantime, take care. Bye.